probably are, and I'm now realizing it's a lot of even their low-level people know this. They just want power, David.
It's always been about divide and conquer, Alex, and they can't get this done quickly enough with the people that they have here, the divide and conquer. So what they're doing is they're importing people who are going to come in and massive numbers, okay? And that's the problem with it. We can't assimilate people. We can't tell if the people who are coming in are even criminals or terrorists, okay? We can't tell. Can't even screen them for diseases. And so what they're doing is they're bringing this in very rapidly, trying to alter the basis of society in order to create conflict, because they're bringing the people in such numbers that they cannot be assimilated into a melting pot. They don't want a melting pot anymore in America.
They want a divide and conquer pot.
That's right. And so that's why we've got the open borders. It's part of the globalist move to try to take down the West, because quite frankly, there isn't any opposition to their neo-colonialism. Nobody has the strength to do it except the Western nations.
Every creature you can imagine, everything's going total robot controlled. The whole world's just falling to pure evil. And despite all of our problems and decadence, we have some of the culture and ideas that will block this dehumanization, and so we must be snuffed out. Yeah. The Renaissance that ended slavery, the Renaissance that worldwide empowered women, they've got to destroy it while they claim they own the mantle to it. It's the most classic takeover program ever. Let's take a few calls here. Who's been holding the longest? Let's talk to Tom in Mass. No. Blake's been holding longer than Tom. Blake, thanks for holding from Texas. You're on the air.
Alex, hey, real quick, I just wanted to respond to something Ant Farmer had said. I'm actually calling you from my cell phone, and I've got a Bluetooth headset. It's just stethoscope material instead of a cord, and completely blocks radiation and keeps it away. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a patent on this, so you could probably sell the daylights out of something like that if you ever decided to have.
Brother, you ought to get the patent. We'll license it from you and put it out. That's what we want to. We want to advance civilization and morals while funding our political ideas, and that's what we're all about: innovation. So we ought to do it.
Well, it sounds fantastic. Yeah,
well, that's his job to either radiate himself or not radiate himself. How is it my fault? It was a very liberal argument.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's your fault. By the way, too, I'm a doctor. I put a lot of my patients on DNA Force who have statin-induced cardiomyopathy or pain all over their body, and I've had great feedback. I've just told them about InfoWars Store, and everyone goes on X2 also. It's great feedback. So anyway, just wanted to get that out there before I got to my main point. But wanted to say, what do you think of this idea? Because I know Roger Stone was trying to get together some speakers. I don't know if he's already got everyone booked. And I know even Donald Trump was looking at getting some people since Tom Brady had canceled on him and Mike Ditka had canceled on him. What about, this is a wild idea, but in light of the Dallas shootings, in light of the way the media is trying to divide everyone and put the idea out that Trump is racist, what about Louis Farrakhan? Having him speak on Trump's behalf. I don't know if he would do it.
Yeah, I don't think he really endorsed Trump. I think he overall said Trump's right that we can't just bring in, when Muslims are infiltrating terrorists, just not even vet them and then bring them in. Of course, we got to check them and stop terrorists, because that's going to be used to scapegoat all the Muslims. And in the end, they're going to do that too. You know, they're bringing in the most primitive third world Muslims who are full of jihadis, and it's going to give all the other Muslims a bad name. I want to believe that Islam, isn't radical in its orthodox areas, but I haven't really followed the whole Roger Stone thing. I'm going to speak next week. He asked me to. We don't need quote names of people to speak at some rally for the First Amendment in case they try to steal the Trump deal. The RNC, I know, really puts pressure on people not to be involved with anything Trump, period. They're trying to block Trump getting control of the RNC when he's nominated. He doesn't get control of it until the last day. So there's an internal war trying to shoot down Trump, shoot down his people, tell other Republicans and people don't go speak at Sing. This is about the citizens. Diamonds and Lace is going to be there. I'm speaking. It's not even a big deal, a rally, and then, oh my gosh, I speak to a crowd of 50,000 people or whatever, 20,000 people, whatever it is. It's about being on the street with the Soros people, against them, the Black Lives Matter, the rest of it, forcing our First Amendment, videotaping the speeches, putting it out into cyberspace, and just being there for Cleveland as a force to cover what's happening and to speak out. if things are stolen. But people always think one-dimensional, two-dimensional about rallies. Rallies are so important. No, putting out news articles that millions of people read every day, videos that millions watch every day, being on radio that millions listen to, and then coming to Cleveland for the First Amendment. It's about the citizens coming. It's about the citizens speaking out. It's about citizens going to Philadelphia and speaking out and pointing out what's going on and being part of the collapse of the dinosaur media. But great points, Blake, and I really appreciate your support and all the things you're doing. Thank you. But yeah, that would be a very interesting idea. Just the media gave the Louis Farrakhan interview that we did almost no attention. It was still seen by millions of people because they know how to deal with it. They want division. And they didn't know how to spin that one way or the other. So that's why they didn't cover that. Going back to David Knight. David, your take on that?
Yeah, Alex, I don't know what Donald Trump is going to do at the convention. My biggest concern is what he's going to do with the vice president. I would very much like to see Jeff Sessions. I don't really know anybody else that he would pick out of the Republican Party that I would feel very good about, because most of the people that are senior in the Republican Party are going to be pushing the kind of globalism and open borders and globalist trade deals that he seems to be at the core opposed to. So unless he gets somebody from outside the political spectrum, unless he gets somebody like Jeff Sessions who has integrity and who thinks the Constitution actually means something and who's been a mentor to him for the last 8 months, unless he does something like that, I'm going to be very concerned about it.
Sure. What about Michael Flynn?
Well, again, there's an outsider, and I'm not really sure. I know he's a retired general. He said he was fired because he talked about Islamic jihad, and they didn't want to use those terms. That's a good point. I just hope he doesn't see a jihadi.
Well, here's the word, and this isn't from Stone, but I asked about it. He said, yeah, that's spot on. Sessions is not really at the top of the running anymore, just because if he ever spoke at one rally that somebody halfway sponsored, Hillary can, get mentored by a Grand Dragon, and the Democrat top guy can be a Grand Dragon or whatever. But if, Sessions was ever connected to some, nationalist group or anything, which he wasn't even part of, they could really turn that into something. I mean, Trump can't even put out a star on something. They claim it's anti-Semitic.
Right.
So that's one thought against Sessions. I've looked into his history. I really don't see that. But they'll try to spin that like they did Ron Paul, claiming stuff in one of his newsletters. But Flynn's right up there at the top of the list right now.
And, of course, there's concern about Gingrich as well. But, the other thing, Alex...
Let me tell you, he picks Gingrich. I'm going to have a big problem with Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, Hillary's so bad that I'll still be for Trump. But let me tell you, I am going to be really upset.
Yeah. One of the things that I've tried to do, I've reached out to 3 different people who are trying to bring up this free the delegate idea. Okay, we've got the guy who filed a lawsuit in Virginia. We've got the lady out in Utah who has the organization. I've tried to reach out to the people who wrote a book, Curly Hoagland, and he's got an op-ed piece out on the Hill today. I've reached out to all of them in the last week. Total silence. Crickets. Come on. Talk to me about it. Let's talk about what the real justice is in this system. Are you going to shut down the votes of millions of people because you say you have a conscience? Let's talk about what a delegate really means. But they won't come on and talk about that. That's
well, sure, it's total spin where George Will says, we are the sovereigns, members of the party. We will decide, not a plurality of mere voters. I mean, it was even we're royalty, we're the sovereigns, and you're mere. I mean, actually using the imperial words. And people think that's arrogant. But if you go back to most societies, it was that arrogance that would con everybody to just stand down. We as Americans think of that royal arrogance as ridiculous, but more and more, we worship the royals because the TV told us to.
Yeah.
A lot of these callers have been holding a long time, but David's got a guest coming up. I apologize. We may not be able to get to everybody. KHI says they disagree, so I can give them about 30, 40 seconds here in a moment, but briefly. We only have this day left to get 20 to 40% off, depending on which package it is, on super high-quality storable foods. There's big discounts across the board on optics, shortwave radios, non-GMO heirloom seeds, Survival Shield X2, and there's free shipping on orders $50 or more, and there's 10% off if you sign up for AutoShip. A lot of big specials. That ends today. Take advantage of it at InfoWarsStore.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. KHI. From Minnesota. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello, Alex Jones. I just want to share some info, or at least at my constructive criticism with you. I am an InfoWars supporter. I have used some of the supplements that you provide. But I think that what I would like to call you out on is I think that some of your rhetoric on race relations is further dividing what is already a dividing country. I will point out that...
Well, let me just throw this out at you, and you can get your number, we can call you back tomorrow, but David's about to take over, he's got a guest. I said this is a quick call. Eating around the edges and being all kiss butt, oh, I'm sorry, Black Lives Matter, oh, it's okay, blah, blah. Their Justice Department run. It needs to be totally exposed. It's there to hurt people. It's a fraud. It's not going to make the police reform themselves. It's going to make them worse. That's my view. Go ahead.
But I would also say that not every Muslim is an Islamic terrorist. And I think the picture that you paint in white Americans' minds is that every black person is somehow affiliated with Black Lives Matter. Or
no, that is not what I'm saying, but that came across. That's not what I intended. If you want to call back in tomorrow, you can get his number, John. David Knight's taking over. Infowars.com. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show on this Monday, July 11th, 2016. I'm David Knight. I'll be your host for the rest of the hour. We have a very interesting guest. I've read a lot of his work for a very long time. Eric Peters. He has epautos.com. He's an independent journalist, and he writes about automobiles and mobility and liberty. He does it from a libertarian perspective. He's done this for 25-plus years as a columnist and author. He's worked for places that you'll recognize, like Washington Times, Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, many others. He's got a couple of books, Automotive Atrocities and Road Hogs. His latest one is called Doomed, and I don't know if that's about the drivers, because we're seeing the last couple of weeks there's been a rash of news about self-driving cars causing accidents, one of them fatal. And I would suggest that maybe we ought to stop calling them self-driving, because I drive myself. These are self-crashing cars. I think that's the way we ought to start referring to these things as. So we want to talk to him about what's going on with Tesla, the cars. Today we've had a third one, and I want to tell you about this one. This was on the Drudge Report. We've now had a third crash attributed to Tesla's autopilot. And again, that's something that Eric Peters has talked about, the fact that autopilot is really a misnomer. We really shouldn't call it that. Okay. Now, these are beta tests. If you do this in your Tesla, you have to acknowledge that you are participating in unproven software, that you agree with that you're going to take the risk to do that you're going to follow their guidelines. You know what? I didn't sign a beta release to be on the road with somebody who is doing a science experiment with their car. That's one of the things that I have a problem with. And before we had this rash of self-driving autopilot cars with Tesla, and of course the third one just happened this last weekend. This was in Montana. The guy was going along, he says, at about 55 to 60 miles an hour. He said that he did not have a center line. The car went off the road and hit the wood barriers on the side, and essentially totaled his car, looks like, took off one side of the car. They have survived in this, but we see this over and over again. Even before we had the fatal accident that got so much attention. And again, it was a Navy SEAL. Isn't it interesting that somebody who lived a dangerous life doing all kinds of risky things would be lulled to sleep like, Ulysses going on to the rocks by the siren song, be lulled to sleep by this idea of this safe utopian technology. So let's talk to Eric Peters now and get his take on this. Eric, thank you for joining us.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's a juxtaposition between this notion that human drivers are fallible, and we have to get them out of the equation, but somehow technology is infallible. Yeah. And I think all of us who've dealt with a PC know that technology is far from infallible.
That's right. It's written by people, right?
Right.
People who are writing the software, they're okay, but not the people who are behind the wheel.
Well, if you think about this, you think about your computer that's in your home, that's on your desk. It's liable to getting software glitches and other problems, and it's in a very safe, controlled environment. It's on your desk. Now, the computers that control cars are in a moving vehicle that's being jostled around, that's subject to extremes of heat and cold, that's exposed to moisture and all of those other things, and problems are going to happen. And you got that on the left hand, and on the other, you've got this touted benefit of these self-driving or automatic driving cars, that you can take your eyes off the road and your mind off driving, and when the car then piles into a semi or an oak tree, somehow it's your fault for not having paid attention to what's going on around you. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's what we're hearing from Tesla now in the wake of these accidents. Basically, it's not our fault. They misused the technology. We didn't make any mistakes. And yet what they did was they lulled people into this false sense of security. We've seen pictures of people going down the highway. I think it was in California with a guy totally asleep behind the wheel of a Tesla. People took